I wasn't supposed to be alone that day. On paper, it was just a routine survey. One more ridge, one more transect, one more long walk along stone and sky for a geological report no one outside the field would ever read. I'd done this kind of work for almost 15 years. But there is a line I never cross anymore, and I learned it that day. Never be the only human on a mountain that clearly thinks you're not. This was in 2017, part of a broader survey in a high dry range that tourists don't bother with. No famous peak, no iconic photos, no easy access. Just wind, rock, and the kind of ridges that look like the spines of buried animals. Our base camp sat in a wide basin below a long, knife-edge ridge. The plan was simple. I'd hike up, walk the ridge for a few kilometers, log rock types, fracture patterns, GPS points, take photos and radio in every hour. 2 others were meant to join me, but a stomach issue took one out in the night, and the other stayed to sort logistics with a faulty generator. It's just a ridge, I told them. Weather's stable, forecast is clear, I'll be in radio range the whole time. I believed that. The climb up was uneventful. The sky was a hard, pale blue, the kind that gives no depth. Wind pushed from the west, steady and cold. Under my boots, scree, then more consolidated rock, then the final scramble onto the main ridge spine. From up there, the world fell away on both sides. On my left, an abrupt drop into a shadowed valley, fractured and dark. On my right, a gentler slope, rolling into endless brown hills. Base camp was a small smear of color far below. I started walking. The first hour felt like every other ridge walk I'd ever done. Boots on stone, rhythm of breath, the click of trekking poles, occasional stops to photograph bedding planes or measure layers. The kind of work where your body moves on autopilot and your mind drifts. I don't know exactly when I realized I wasn't alone. It was the wind, I think. Wind in the mountains is never truly random. It has patterns, gusts, lulls. You get used to the way it carries sound. Your own footsteps, loose rocks, fabric flapping. But about 90 minutes into the traverse, I started hearing something that didn't fit the pattern. It happened between my own steps. An extra sound, always a fraction of a second after my foot hit the ground. Step, 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 step. At first, I assumed it was some quirk of echo. Ridgelines can bounce sound in strange ways. I stopped. The sound stopped. I took 2 more steps. Rock crunched under my boot. Crunch. Crunch. I turned my head slowly, scanning the ridge behind me. Nothing. No human, no animal. Just the narrow spine twisting back through the haze, flecks of light on rock, dust devils rising in the distance where the ridge dipped. I told myself, altitude, nerves, overactive brain. I took a deep breath and forced a slow exhale like we're taught. All right, I muttered aloud. My voice felt small in the open air. Just you and the mountain. I moved on. The sound stayed. It never exactly matched my steps. It always came a beat after, like a delayed copy. And it seemed to stay at the same lateral distance from me, somewhere off to my left, on the steeper, more dangerous side of the ridge, where loose rock slid into a sharp drop. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe there was a loose boulder that rolled slightly every time I vibrated the ridge. Maybe some kind of bird, hidden, hopping along. Maybe I'd tell the story at camp later as a funny example of weird mountain acoustics. The longer it went on, the less funny it became. Every time I stopped, the extra steps stopped too. Every time I turned my whole body and walked back a few paces, listening, nothing followed. When I resumed my original direction, they returned. It felt cooperative, like something that wanted to walk with me, but not to be seen. I radioed base camp at the 2-hour check. Ridge conditions? They asked. Clear, I said automatically. Rock stable. No evidence of recent slides. I didn't add. There is something pacing me and I'm pretending it's physics. They wouldn't have been able to do anything about it anyway. The ridge narrowed further ahead, tapering into a sharper edge. To my left, the ground fell away in broken shelves of rock, shadow pooling between slabs. To my right, the drop was still serious but survivable in theory. I shifted closer to the right side, keeping my center of gravity low. The extra footsteps shifted too, still on the left, still close, still just behind the rhythm of my own. I tried an experiment. I stopped and deliberately stomped 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Silence. I waited. Then from the left, clear as if someone were doing it a few meters away. 1, 2, 3. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But the timing was too precise to be accidental. I remember my hands feeling suddenly weightless, like they weren't attached properly. Echo, I told myself again, desperate. Layered echoes, delayed on fractured rock. It's possible you know about this. You've read this. Sound can... The mountain didn't care what I'd read. I tried not to run. Running on a knife-edge ridge is a good way to leave your bones decorating the valley. I walked faster. The sound matched me, always that one beat behind. At some point I stopped thinking of it as an echo and started thinking of it as footsteps. I don't remember when that mental shift happened. I just know that once it did, everything changed. Shadows seemed longer. The air felt thicker. The whole ridge felt narrower than it had a few minutes before. I decided to cut my traverse short. I checked the map on my GPS. A small, wider bulge in the ridge lay ahead, like a shoulder. If I could reach it, I could safely turn around or find a descent line back to the basin without retracing the entire route. The steps followed me to the shoulder, always left, always a pace behind. When I reached the slight widening, I moved as far to the right as I could, close enough that small pebbles tumbled down the gentler slope. "Okay," I said out loud, feeling ridiculous and terrified in equal measure. If this is just my brain, it won't matter what I do next. I closed my eyes for a second, opened them. Then, very slowly, I turned my entire body to face the left side, the steep drop, the shadowed shelves, the broken teeth of rock. And I stepped toward the sound. 1 step. Crunch. Nothing else. 2nd step. Crunch. Silence. 3rd step, right to the edge, where one more slip would mean a very long, very final descent. I planted my boot. Waited. For the first time since it started, there was no delayed step. No following crunch. Just the wind breathing across the ridge. My scalp prickled, then I heard it. Not footsteps this time, breathing. Close. Too close. As if someone were standing just below the lip of the ridge, invisible from above, chest pressed against the stone, exhaling carefully through their teeth so as not to be heard. Slow. Deliberate. Controlled. Matching the rhythm of my own breath, just a half beat behind, like the footsteps had been. I didn't move for what felt like a full minute. My brain catalogued options: crawl back, leap right, call on the radio, scream, do nothing. In the end, survival instinct picked the simplest. Leave. I backed away from the edge, inch by inch, eyes never leaving that patch of stone. The breathing didn't get louder or closer. It just stayed. Following the way my chest rose and fell, like something was listening. When I'd put 2 full meters between myself and the drop, I turned and began walking back along the ridge, the same way I'd come. No detours, no more experiments, no photographs, nothing. Just forward motion. The footsteps resumed. Left side. 1 beat behind. That's when I started talking. I don't remember exactly what I said. Incoherent things, half-jokes, pleas, bargains with a thing I still refuse to name. Maybe I was talking to myself, trying to keep panic from making my hands shake. Maybe I was talking to the mountain. Maybe I was talking to something that had waited a long time to have someone walk at its pace. The entire way back, the pattern didn't change. Every time I stopped, it stopped. Every time I moved, it moved. When the ridge widened and the drop to the left softened, the sound became fainter, as if whatever was there was forced closer to the edge. By the time I reached the point where the ridge met the slope, the extra steps faded entirely. I didn't realize how tense my muscles had been until they let go. My legs almost buckled. I half slid down the last section of loose rock toward camp, more careless than I've ever been on descent. The others saw my face and went quiet. "What happened?" the leader asked. I opened my mouth to explain, to talk about echoes, illusions, something understandable. Instead, I heard myself say, "The ridge was occupied." We don't use words like haunted in field reports. We say things like unexplained auditory correlation and possible perceptual phenomena due to fatigue and altitude. That's what I wrote later. What I didn't write was this. During the night, in my tent, sometime past 2 a.m, I woke up to the sound of someone walking just outside on the gravel. Not circling the tent, not wandering the camp. Walking in a straight line, back and forth, like a restless thing, replaying a path along a ridge, searching for the right distance to keep. It stopped when I sat up. The next day, when we packed to leave the basin, I did something I'm still not proud of. As we loaded the last crate into the truck, I turned my back to the ridge, kept my eyes on the valley, and refused to look up even once. I knew, with the same certainty you know when someone is staring at you from across a room, that if I looked, I would see nothing. And knowing there was nothing up there would be so much worse than seeing something. I don't tell this story to other climbers. When people ask why I quit guiding high-altitude expeditions, I talk about my knees, my age, my family. The truth is simpler. I can't stand deep silence anymore. It reminds me of one night when the mountain quietly picked us up and put us down somewhere else. It was 2014, in the remote part of a range I won't name. We were 4, me, the lead guide, Lucas, my young assistant, Emma, a geologist, and Ramos, a photographer documenting glacial retreat. The approach was brutal, but normal. Loose rock, thin air, long traverses. We were heading toward a high forgotten plateau, far off any commercial route. No fixed ropes, no other teams, no chance of help. Late in the afternoon, we found what looked like a perfect high camp. A shallow shelf cut into the slope, partly shielded by a rock outcrop. We could see the valley below, the ridge above, a glacier tongue to the east. I checked the snowpack, dug a quick pit, watched for slab. Everything looked stable. The wind was sharp but steady. I'd chosen worse. We pitched 3 tents in a row. Me and Lucas in the first, Emma in the middle, Ramos in the last, closest to the drop so he'd have the best sunrise shot. We cooked, melted snow, joked about altitude headaches. The only strange thing, looking back, was the silence between gusts. Usually an exposed face never really shuts up. Spindrift, distant cracks, some kind of noise. Up there, the wind would roar, then cut out for 2 full seconds. No sound at all. Just our breathing, loud and alone like the whole slope was listening. We turned in early. A technical section waited above. Around midnight, I woke up with that guide's instinct. Something was wrong. Not the cold, not a specific sound. The opposite. The wind had stopped. The tent fabric lay slack. No hiss, no tapping of snow. Just my own breath in the dark. "Lucas," I whispered. He stirred. Before he answered, we both heard it. A dry crunch outside, a few meters below camp. The sound of a boot on crusted snow. Pause. Another step. Slow. Heavy. Snow settling? Ice cracking? Maybe. But those sounds roll and crumble. This one walked. "You heard that, right?" Lucas whispered. I did. "Stay quiet." I unzipped the vestibule a few centimeters. No headlamps, no movement. A thin moon washed the slope in grey. The other 2 tents sat where they should be, nothing else. The steps kept going. Only now they weren't coming from below us. They were above us. Same rhythm. Same spacing, like something circling just out of sight. Echo, Emma would say later. Maybe, but echoes don't climb. A sudden gust hit the tent, hard enough to bow the fabric into my face. The wind came back all at once, like someone had lifted a lid. The footsteps stopped. I lay awake a long time, feeding myself explanations, altitude, nerves, misinterpreted noises, until exhaustion dragged me under again. The next time I woke, Lucas was shaking my arm. "Get up," he said. "Something's wrong with camp." We stumbled into the cold, boots half-laced, headlamps cutting yellow tunnels through the dark. At that altitude, every movement is deliberate. Panic had us moving anyway. One glance was enough. Our camp was in the wrong place. The tents were still lined up, guy lines tight, stakes firm. But the rock outcrop I'd used as a back wall was higher now, farther away. We were lower on the slope and a little to the right, as if the entire row had been slid over while we slept. My mind went straight to denial. Perspective looks different at night. You're confused, calm down. Then I saw the old marks. Behind us, stamped into the snow, were 3 perfect rectangles where the tents had been. Clean outlines, sharp edges. In the middle of each imprint, a faint depression where a body had pressed down. Empty. Between those dead prints and our current position, nothing. No dragged snow, no churned boot prints, no track of 4 people lifting and shifting 3 full tents. Just smooth, untouched white. It's impossible, Ramos said over and over. That's physically impossible. Emma, clinging to something measurable, checked her wrist GPS. Maybe it's just the angle, she said. Maybe we... Her voice cut off. From the coordinates logged before we slept to where we stood now, there was a shift of almost 8 meters. 8 meters, I said. We didn't do that in our sleep. Not here. Not without leaving anything behind. No one disagreed. Again, the wind died, like someone turning a knob. Silence dropped over us, heavy and padded. Even our breathing sounded wrong, the way it does inside a small room. Only there was nothing above us but sky. The old tent prints bothered me in one more way. The centers looked slightly sunken, as if the snow had given way underneath. Or as if something below had moved during the night. Like an exhale. I swallowed that thought. We're going down, I said. Now. No summit. Normally, that would start an argument. This time, nobody said a word. Whatever makes a climber accept extra risk had gone quiet inside all of us. We packed fast. Some stakes resisted like they'd been pulled from below. I pretended not to notice. We left a few things behind. Extra fuel, spare line, a torn stuff sack. It was worth it to move quicker. About 100 meters lower, I stopped on a small safe patch to check our line. Habit made me look back. The ledge where we'd camped was empty. Just pale snow and dark rock. But if you stared at the place long enough, you could see faint bulges in the surface. Not tracks. Not holes. Broad, curved rises, 4 in a row, following the line where our tents had stood the first night. Like fingers. As if something under the crust had felt the weight above, then decided to push us gently aside. I turned away and kept moving. Back at base camp, the manager demanded a reason for the aborted climb. I gave him half-truths, unstable snow, bad feeling about the route, changes in the forecast. He grumbled, but he didn't send us back up. No one wants to be the one who ignored a guide's fear. That evening, Ramos came to my tent with his camera. You need to see this. He'd taken a long exposure shot of camp before we'd gone to sleep. 3 glowing tents against a black ridge and star trails. When he raised the shadows, the snow beneath the tents wasn't flat. A faint hump ran under the row, like a buried shape stretching from the glacier edge straight under our camp, exactly where I'd seen the bulges from below. Did you edit this? I asked. No, just contrast, he said. He tried to joke about the mountain rearranging furniture. I didn't laugh. I turned down high-altitude jobs the next season. The year after, I stopped guiding completely. Now I teach knots and rescue systems on plastic walls. People say they envy the expeditions I must miss. They're wrong. I don't miss the peaks. I don't even fear falling. I'm afraid of that silence coming back, of closing my eyes on some remote slope and waking up somewhere I didn't choose, because something under the mountain decided it owned us for the night. I've spent most of my adult life inside mountains. Caves feel more honest to me than cities. Rock doesn't lie. It shifts, it cracks, it collapses. But it doesn't pretend. That's what I used to say anyway. Now, when I close my eyes at night, I don't see stalactites or crystal chambers or underground rivers. I hear my own voice, coming back with one extra. This was in 2011, part of a small scientific expedition in a little-known karst region. I won't say the exact country, because after our report leaked, a handful of thrill-seekers tried to find the place. One group went missing for 3 days. They came back. But not all of them came back the same. Officially, we were there to map a newly discovered cave system, measure air quality, and collect samples of subterranean fauna. Unofficially, we wanted to be the first to mark our names on something big. An underground network that could change the map of the area. We were 5. Mimai, lead caver and surveyor. Maya, biologist. Havel, geologist. Jonas and Leon, rope and rigging specialists. The entrance was clean, a narrow slit in a limestone wall, half hidden by moss and low shrubs, just wide enough for a human body to slide through sideways. The kind of place you only find if you're looking very, very carefully. Or if it wants you to. From the first meter, the cave behaved like any other. Tight squeeze, angle down, then a small chamber, then a drop. We rigged a fixed line, went one by one. Ropes were solid, anchors solid, gear standard. No ghost stories, just stone and gravity. 2 hours in, the cave opened into a large corridor, roughly 3 meters high, gently sloping downward. The air was steady, no drafts. The ground was dusted with fine sediment, no footprints but ours. This is where the first weird thing happened, and at the time we all laughed it off. We'd been teaching a simple procedure to Jonas, he was new to deep survey. When you cross into a major chamber, you do a head count out loud. Not because you can't count to 5, but because your brain behaves differently under the mountain. Saying it anchors you. I remember it very clearly. Havel, up front, called 1, then I said 2. Maya, 3. Leon, 4. Jonas, bringing up the rear, answered 5. The sound faded down the corridor, and then, from somewhere further ahead in the darkness, the cave repeated 6. A voice. Human. Calm. Same language. Same rhythm. Just that one word. We froze. I turned my headlamp to max and swept the corridor ahead. Bare rock. No side passages, no alcoves large enough to hide anything bigger than a backpack. Echo, Jonas said too quickly. He was trying to say it for himself. Echoes don't invent numbers, Maya whispered. We stood there for a full minute, listening. Nothing. Just the soft hiss of our own breathing and the faint pulse of water somewhere deep below. Eventually, I forced a laugh. Probably a delayed reflection mixed with noise. Let's keep moving. We're wasting time. Professionals know how to step on their own fear. It doesn't go away. You just walk on top of it. We moved on, deeper. The corridor led to a massive chamber, maybe 20 meters in diameter, ceiling lost in the dark above our beams. In the center stood a fallen block of limestone, big as a car, split down the middle. Perfect place to rest, eat, start laying out survey points. We did what cavers always do. Set packs down, checked time, marked coordinates, joked about how this chamber needed a name. Jonas stood near the entrance, staring up and listening. You hear that? He asked. We all went quiet. At first I heard nothing unusual, just the small, familiar sounds of life underground. Our gear clinking softly. A drop of water somewhere. Someone shifting weight. Then it hit me. It wasn't what I heard. It was what I didn't. This chamber had no echo. That's not normal. In a space that size, a simple clap should bounce back at you like a rubber ball. Test, I said. I raised my hand and clapped once, hard. The sound hit the rock and died. No return, no decay, just a clean cut. Could be the geometry, Havel started. Porous surfaces, irregular. I clapped again. Nothing. Leon clapped from the other side of the block. Nothing. Maya tapped a carabiner against the stone. Metal on limestone. A clear ting. Dead. It felt like the chamber was eating sound. I don't know how long we spent trying to rationalize it before deciding to proceed. We had a schedule. People topside expected results. No one wanted to be the first to say, let's go back because something feels wrong. We set up base markers and decided to explore a narrow passage at the far end of the chamber. Only 2 of us, at a time, to avoid crowding the route. The plan. I'd go first, Jonas behind me. We'd scout for 10 minutes, call back by radio, then either return or signal for the others. Easy. As we started into the passage, I told the others, if we lose radio signal, we shout, head count again, same order. Relax, Leon said. It's just rock. The passage sloped slightly down, tighter than the corridor but manageable. After maybe 15 meters, we hit a fork. Left side, narrow and dry. Right side, damp, slight airflow. I clicked my radio. Base, we have a fork. Left and right, no markings, airflow to the right. Static. Base copy. Nothing. Maybe the chamber's blocking signal, Jonas said. Then we do it the old way, I answered. We shout. I turned my head back the way we'd come, took a deep breath and yelled, "Hey, count check!" My voice rushed down the passage, weaker than it should have, swallowed by the stone. From the main chamber, faint but clear, came the replies. 1! That was Havel. 2! Maya. 3! Leon. Then, just like earlier, a fourth voice. 4! It was my voice. Exactly. Same tone, same way I say it on every trip, but I was not in the chamber. Jonas's hand tightened on my shoulder. "Did you—" "Shut up!" I said, more sharply than I meant to. We listened. Silence. "Okay," I said finally, throat suddenly dry. "We go back now." We turned around. The passage felt narrower. The air felt hotter, though my watch still read single digits. We took maybe 3 steps when something else reached us from the chamber. Not voices this time. Footsteps, 4 sets walking in unison, slow, deliberate, crossing open rock. But we had left 3 people back there, not 4. "Maybe someone else entered behind us," Jonas whispered. We both knew how stupid that sounded. There had been no other vehicles at the access point, no other teams in the region. We were alone. I should have said something reassuring. That's what a lead does. Instead, I just said, "Move." We went as fast as we could without tripping over our own gear. When we emerged into the chamber, our lights swept across the fallen block, the survey marks, the dropped pack. Havel, Maya, and Leon stood exactly where we'd left them, no one else. I forced myself to do the count. 1, I said. 2, Maya answered. 3, Leon. 4, Havel. 5, Jonas. My brain braced for it. Nothing answered. Relief should have come. It didn't. "Did you hear footsteps?" Jonas asked the others. "Yum," Maya said. "We thought you were coming back." "We did," I said. "We heard something in here, my voice, from in there, repeating the count." They looked at me like they wanted to believe it was a joke. "I'm not playing," I said. "We're done for today. Mark the chamber and we head out." The climb back to the entrance felt longer than the descent. The cave seemed to press closer around us, not physically, but in the way the sound behaved. Every breath felt sharper. Every scrape of gear against rock sounded like it stopped just short of an echo, like something was waiting to answer and never did. We emerged at dusk. Fresh air felt wrong on my face. That was supposed to be the end of it. Weird acoustics. Strange day. Add it to the pile of things you don't talk about if you want people to keep funding your work. Then the recordings came. Havel, thorough as always, had left an audio recorder running in the chamber while we went down the fork. Later, when we were back at the lab, he sent us the file. The first few minutes were boring, shuffling, gear noises, occasional cough, us moving away. Then the dead quiet of the chamber. Around the 6-minute mark, we heard it. My voice, slightly distant. "Hey, count check!" Then, faint but clear, the replies from the chamber. 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth voice. 4. It was not identical to mine this time, not exactly. It was off. Like someone who had heard me say it 1,000 times and was now trying to mimic it. Too precise on some syllables, too slow on others. We let the recording run. After the count, there was a long stretch of silence. You could almost hear how heavy it was. Then faint, something else. Breathing. Not ours, not human exactly. Too regular, too deep, as if the chamber itself was practicing the sound. And right before the file cut, right before, someone whispered, almost lovingly, right against the microphone. 5. We hadn't left the recorder unattended 5 times. We hadn't entered the cave 5 times. We were 5 people. The official report mentions anomalous acoustic behavior and recommends further study. I wrote 1 extra line in my personal notes and never showed it to the committee. The cave learned our pattern. It counted us, and something was missing. I haven't set foot underground since.